Hey, Gator Nation. Welcome back to the Respect Our Decision podcast, guys. As always, I'm your boy Hirsch, and with me tonight, only with me tonight, CJ the Man McCann.
What's up, guys?
The hype man could not be with us tonight, guys. He had to go to his son's baseball game. They had a makeup game, so big shout out to our man Wes and his son as they try to get the dub tonight on the diamond. But anyways, guys, as always, man, make sure you go out there, download the podcast wherever you get the podcast from. If you're checking us out on the YouTube, guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel, man. We got a lot of good content to talk about tonight. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like button. And down below in the comments, guys, give your personal grade to how Billy Napier and the Gators handled the portal in this cycle, not just spring, but the winter portal as well, as in a whole getting ready for this upcoming 2024 season. Give your thoughts on how they handled it, because we're going to talk a little bit about it tonight. We're not going to give kind of our grade, but kind of our thoughts, because there's still one more piece that we're waiting on until Friday, and we're about to talk about that in a minute. But I think all in all now, with the addition of one Cormani McClain, man, the portal, Billy Napier and company did a really solid job, and we're going to talk more about it in a minute. So make sure you leave your comments below on what you feel like, how you feel like Billy Napier handled the portal this cycle as a whole, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you get notifications every time we drop more content. And before we get started, guys, as always, if you haven't already and you're able, make sure you go out there and sign up for Florida Victorious. Use our code DECISION and get 20% off your first month with Florida Victorious. Now is as good a time as any, man. They're making moves. We're getting ready to, jump into the summertime. A lot of recruiting going on. We're going to break down the first weekend of official visits starting at the last weekend in May on next week's show. But man, there's a lot of stuff going on, Gator Nation, a lot of stuff to be excited about. We're going to start right now. First, though, obviously, we got the commitment today from Cormani. There's a lot to unpack with that whole situation, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, we're going to start and talk about the other guy that was on campus with him this week, Elijhah Badger. So Elijhah Badger came in, obviously the transfer from Arizona State. He is considering Washington. He's considering Arizona, but he made the visit. Everyone's conversation was, will he pass the physical? Well, he passed the physical. Now, I'm not here to tell you that he underwent some crazy in-depth physical. Whatever they gave him, he passed. Now, what I will say, per sources that we talked to, not only did he pass the physical, but he ran a 40 under 4.5. And it was in the 4.4, area. So obviously that's pretty solid number right there to be putting up. That was obviously timed by the coaches. They wanted to see how healthy he was. So they did enough of a physical to see how fast he could run a 40. And he did really well. So right before we came on the air, Hayes Fawcett dropped an edit saying that he would announce his commitment Friday. Obviously, it's between those three teams. And everybody on our end feels really good about it right now. Now, you would have liked him to commit before leaving campus. Obviously, that's always what you want to see. You're leaving campus. You like to see him go ahead and say, hey, I'm a Gator. I went ahead and signed the papers while I was here, yada, yada, yada. That hasn't happened yet that we know of. I mean, he obviously could have committed to the staff. He could have signed any kind of paperwork he needed to sign while he was on campus. He's a graduate transfer. He graduated, I believe, a couple weeks ago from Arizona State. So all that's good and well. Now all you need to do is get the commitment. CJ, how you feeling about this?
I feel pretty confident at the moment. I mean, again, you talk about, we've done this show long enough, and people that have followed recruiting or transfers or anything of that nature understand at this point that things change fast. Anything can happen. Right now, though, it doesn't look like there's anything that should get in the way of this as far as our end. Now, somebody could always cough up, some NIL at the end, change some stuff. That happens, but right now it doesn't look like that'll be an issue. Yeah, I think the kid's just waiting to get an edit done, and he's going to post it. And I think Friday will be pretty happy with where we're at. I think that we sit pretty good for him. In regards to the physical, I know how strict University of Florida is about health risk management, because we've talked about it on the show before, and I've said before, when you're talking about that hospital, when you're talking about UF Health and you're talking about Shands Hospital, uh, they are very conscious about what they do as far as making medical decisions, because it will not reflect very good on them if they clear somebody and then they have a serious injury because of it, because they didn't do the due diligence. So I've never known University of Florida to skimp on a physical. So if they say he's good, then I think you can take that to the bank. I think that means this guy's obviously not going to be hindered by this. It's not going to cause him any further trouble. There's no great risk of him being really badly hurt for the rest of his life if he takes a hit. They would. I don't think that we would take him or we'd clear him or would want him if that was any of the case, because it hasn't been Florida's never done that before. I don't think that they would start because of Elijhah Badger. So hey, if everything's checked out, like I said, I feel very confident in the University of Florida, their decision as far as health goes. So I'm excited for it. You're adding, if you can get him, you add a guy who's a great piece to add to the other side of the wide receiver room. It really gives you another guy. You've added, that would make two very good, experienced wide receivers that have played a lot of football added to your room. This would be the most experienced room we've had since 2019 if you were able to add him, with him and guys like Khalil Jackson and Burke, guys that, and of course, Shemray DK, who have been in, playing football for a long time. They're not, a whole bunch of freshmen, which, we weren't, we didn't have the most experienced room for the last few years, outside of, Ricky Pearsall and then Justin Shorter. You were kind of, working your way through with some younger talent, some guys that had not played a whole lot, guys that were really starting to get their first opportunity. And now those guys have grown. So those guys that were really young at those points, not so much anymore. Khalil Jackson's been here for a while. Burke's been here for a while. Those are guys that are, pretty well seasoned at this point. And of course, Eugene Trey Wilson has also played a lot of football at this point now. He played a lot last year. So, you could add him to the list as far as a guy who is very experienced. And that gives an opportunity for Mizell and Andy Jean and Dre Hawkins and Twaski Abrams to really grow. It gives them, you're not putting them all the pressure on them. Now, I think we all want to see them play. I think we all want to see them get reps. But this would make it where you really don't have to force them into a position before they're ready to make the plays and end up being a detriment to the team because of just the lack of experience. Not lack of talent, but just the only way to learn how to do something, get better at it, is to do it a lot. And those guys just haven't done it a lot yet. So, no, I think that this is a great opportunity for the University of Florida. Again, this isn't confirmed yet, but as of right now, we look like we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, what you said about the depth of the wide receiver room, if you add a kid the quality of Elijhah Badger to that receiving room, you've elevated that wide receiver room tremendously, in my opinion, because you still have, regardless of what you've seen so far, you still have the promise of Andy Jean in that room. If he's to get healthy and he has a great fall camp and he shoots up, and you still have the promise of Aiden Mizell, but you don't have to rush those guys. You do not have to rush those guys into action. Like you brought up DK, you still have the veteran, I call him a veteran. He's Khalil Jackson is not so much a veteran, but he's played enough reps now where he kind of is in that room. But you still have the Marcus Burks in that room. So, and the Fraziers. I know Wes. I got to bring I'm contractually obligated to bring up Frazier so Wes doesn't get mad at me. But you have all these guys in that room that have played snaps. So if you add this young man and he is healthy enough to play, and like you brought up, and you also have to add into what you brought into it about the facilities and the trainings that we have now with the facilities. You have the, for better term, the cryo chamber to put these guys in that's supposed to help with the healing and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of elements into that where obviously the staff and training staff and whoever else they had looked him over and said, no, we can have this kid ready. This kid's going to be good to go. Maybe he's not good to go at the start of camp. Maybe he at the start of camp, he's still got a couple weeks to go. I really don't know the severity of it, but as long as he's ready to go by week 1, Miami, and this is something we've brought up, that takes so much pressure off of Trey Wilson to have another guy that the defenses have to respect on the offense at the receiver position, where they're like, well, don't just have to worry about where Trey is, because if you focus all in on Trey, you got this guy getting us. And then you have DK, I think DK's still going to have a great year. I mean, once again, he's got that rapport with Mertz. So Mertz is going to feel comfortable throwing to this guy. And don't leave out Mertz into the equation of why this young man is considering us. I mean, this is obviously a veteran quarterback. Ricky put in some good words. We talked about it already, saying, look, man, look what Mertz just did for me. As well as, we talk about Billy Gonzalez, the recruiter, but Billy Gonzalez, the developer, whatever Elijhah Badger is missing to his game, he gets to spend some time now developing under Billy Gonzalez as he prepares for the next level of his career. So a lot of good positive things out there. Hopefully Friday we get some more good news, man, on that front. And I think that's just really going to top off this transfer portal cycle. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But that takes us to the bigger story, if you will, and Cormani McClain. CJ, wow, how things have gone full cycle. I remember being on this show talking about when we were sure Cormani McClain was about to commit, the week before Cormani committed, and we were all like, oh, it's money day, the day of. Oh my God, it's Cormani day, man. And we were posting that from our social media platforms. It's Cormani day. It's done. And I remember the message you sent to me when Cormani committed to Miami. And it was a big WTF just happened. Because we were all like, what? This was done. And it was done for the good guys by all accounts. It was the biggest caught with your pants down recruiting moment that I ever remember. And I remember some pretty big moments. So, but we've gone full cycle. So let's kind of back things up to the end of last week. We both kind of started hearing rumblings. Hey, don't discount Florida with Cormani McClain. And we're like, come on, man. That's the last. We ain't taking Cormani McClain. He not only set fire to the bridge, but then he pissed kerosene all over it and just burned it completely. He burned that son bitch to the ground. I mean, let's just call it what it was. This ain't happening. Then me and CJ kind of checked with each other and like, hey, I kind of heard maybe there's more to this than you think. And CJ messaged me back and said, I heard the same thing. And we're like, man, this is wild. And then it came out that he had taken a visit the day before to Florida. And then it grew legs. And then people were saying, oh, you know what? I kind of think this is going to happen. He's going to take a visit. And then he took his visit. And you started hearing more. And then Wilt Fong put in that Fong bomb saying he's predicting Cormani to Florida. And it's just like, holy, what earth are we living on here? So today he commits, but it's not your average commitment. This is not like a straightforward, the kid transferred to Florida. There's some strings attached to this, if you will. The word is it is as a preferred walk on, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on Cormani, as into you've got to walk the fine line. It's pretty much a one strike and you're out kind of situation. You whatever was going on at Colorado, I can't speak to. What I do know is that his other options were FAMU or FAMU and Memphis. And the powers that be around him were like, look, he does not need to go to Memphis. If he goes to Memphis, he's going to get in trouble, and it's just not going to be a good scene. I know Florida State kind of had some conversations about him as well, but keep him out of Tallahassee. So once again, this really speaks to Billy Napier and company, and as to the culture that they've built. As to, hey, this is the place to bring this kid. Bring him to Gainesville. Will Harris wants the challenge. I can make this kid. And let me tell you right now, if Will Harris turns this kid into anything at all at this point right now, and Billy Napier does, buddy, that is a stock rising. That's Will Harris's stock's going to go through the roof as far as a developer and a coach and what he could do here. But there's a lot of, why would we do this right now? Billy Napier is in a season where he can't afford distractions. And this is one hell of a distraction, especially if it goes sideways. So it's one of those, I understand a lot of people are like, it's low risk, high reward, but there could be some high risk in it if it goes sideways as far as the locker room distraction. But obviously, I saw somebody say, well, why would we want this if we were building this culture? Well, Billy Napier built this culture. Who better than him to decide if the guy is a fit or not? CJ, there's a lot of sides of the fence of this one. I think most people have come around to thinking, you know what? Bring it in, make it. If it doesn't work, we're not out anything. He's got a chance to earn a scholarship down the road. But if it doesn't work out, so be it. We dump him off. We lose nothing. What is your take on this whole situation?
Billy Napier is betting on his culture to win. And he's confident in what he's built. Will it work out? I don't know, but I think that we have put enough fail safes in place with Cormani to make it worth it. And I think that too, you don't ever want to just throw a kid away. Especially a lot of these coaches have all had kids like Cormani that are supremely talented, that make bad decisions. I'm sure you can speak to that. Your dad, being a football coach, obviously had dealt with the same thing with kids, multiple that were supremely talented, that made a lot of bad decisions. And you end up, Billy Napier too, we talk about him and his dad was the same way. I think it's more of a high school coach mentality too. That where you're trying to be a figure and build a culture and say, well, I'd rather not throw him out there in the cold. I'd rather try to get him, here with me, and let's see if we can fix some stuff. Obviously they're not going to put up with a whole lot of crap because they are taking a chance here. They don't have a whole lot of room to take a lot of crap. So it's you've made it very clear of, this is what we expect from you. We're rocking the zero tolerance right now. You mess up, we're done. We can't justify keeping you around if you're going to hurt the culture that I spent a lot of time trying to fix, because where it was prior to me getting here. And then the first couple of seasons, you saw a lot of it still kind of rear its ugly head that Billy Napier had to work with. Now he's banking that, hey, I have built a culture here that is strong enough to take a kid like Cormani McClain and really get the best out of him, and help revitalize the kid's career. Because you're talking about a guy who was at one point looked at as the best player in the country, bar none, regardless of position, was looked at as the number one recruit. Was definitely the number one defensive back. So he's got the talent. Obviously, he just needs some structure. Now he's going to have to want the structure. He's going to have to want to fall in line. He's going to have to want to play. Um, but I think Cormani, there's a chance that now maybe he's seen the bottom of the barrel to the point of it was like, man, I got to go to Memphis, FAMU. At one point, I could have picked any school in the country that I wanted to: Alabama, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, wherever he wanted to go, he could have went. And then he hit the portal and left Colorado and was like, man, nobody wants me. That's got to affect you in the sense of, I'm better than this. So now you have a chance to go to Florida and restructure your own image, your own brand. We talked about it. We've talked about it 100 times on the show. These kids are their own brand right now. They have to invest in themselves. Right now, Cormani has to make a business decision, and I think he's making a business decision. I need to go to Florida. I need to fix my image. And Billy Napier on the other side of it is, I need to help this kid realize his full potential and not turn my back and possibly waste a great athlete. Florida, and two, on the other side of that, Florida's not in a position where we can be too picky and choosy about who we bring on when we need the talent right now. We've gone into trying to add talent. We've talked about being a talent acquisition business. When Florida was at its best, it had a lot of questionable characters on the team, but the guys could play. And that's what's going to matter. If Cormani McClain could keep his nose clean Monday through Friday, and on the weekend come up, play ball, and do what he's supposed to do, keep up with his classwork, then you've got a chance. At very worst, Cormani, goes to school, finishes out, does a good job, gets a college education, and is a role player on the team, and he gets a chance to have a college degree and play 3-4 years of football because he's that good to where he can just show up and play and be okay enough to justify having a roster spot. Or he could, completely turn things around and be the kind of athlete that he was projected out of high school and go play in the NFL. So I think that it's worth the risk because, again, you're talking about a guy that you didn't waste a scholarship on. You can cut ties with him immediately. You don't have to go through a lot of red tape to say you're off the team. So now it's okay. So we've got a supremely talented athlete. He's had some snags. He's hit some bumps in the road. He's made some bad decisions. But you also look at that from the fact of, I was also 18, 19 years old at one point. I made a lot of bad decisions too. And all I needed was a chance. So now he's got a chance. And I think that's all that we can give him is a chance. So I'm willing to put everything that he's done in Colorado aside and say that has nothing to do with the University of Florida. He didn't do any of that wearing our uniform. So what he does when he gets here is going to be my opinion of Cormani McClain. I think that he comes with a reputation. He does come with some baggage, but you have an opportunity now to really get a good player. We can sit here, me and you could sit here and rattle off names of 100 guys that made bad decisions and actually turned it around at some point, right? We can name a bunch of guys that didn't, but we can also say the guys turned it around. What if nobody gave Randy Moss another chance? Then we would have never known about how great Randy Moss could be. There's hundreds of guys that you could sit here and list that had some issues. They need the right coach, the right situation, and you could turn this stuff around. So I'm gonna go with what Billy's doing and bank on the culture that he's built and believe that they can take Cormani McClain and turn him into the great defensive back that he was projected to be coming out of high school, because we know he's supremely talented. He just needs he just needs to go to work. I think that's the main thing, is you need to put the blinders on and really just get involved with what you're doing on the field, your mechanics, your schoolwork. Take everything else away and just put your head down and work. If you could get him to do that, you're going to have a guy that's going to be hard to keep off the field, and it's going to be hard. And I hope it becomes hard not to give him a scholarship to keep him here. Still muted, Hirsch.
Sorry about that. It's funny you brought that up about my dad. I remember several cases. My dad had players on his team where he had to go to him, and he was like, because he coached in Clayton County up in Atlanta, and it was a rough spot, man. A lot of kids going through a lot of stuff, and you didn't know what a lot of their situations were. But my dad would go to him, and he'd be like, "Look, man, we got to knock this off. We got to, and he knew what they were doing. Some of them were selling drugs, lots of stuff. And my dad I remember one kid he went to, and he was like, "Man, you got to knock this off, man. You've got a chance to be special, but you're throwing it away." He goes, "And you're not even going to ever get to even know." And the kid's name ended up being Enrico Hines, and the kid ended up playing quarterback for Memphis many years after that. And it was cool. Me and Dad would sit there and watch, and he'd be like, "I remember, man, that kid. I knew he had a chance to be special." And you see these kids like this, and you're 100% right. Some of them just don't understand, especially a kid as talented as Cormani, how fast you can blow it or throw it all away, because you've always been so much better than everyone else you were around. And you just feel like, well, my talent's always going to just be better, and I'll just ride it. And Dion gave that kid a chance. As a true freshman, that kid started at Colorado. Now, not very much, but it was like 2 or 3 games he started. And Dion knows defensive backs. So let's not just forget, like, Dion doesn't know what a talented defensive back looks like. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not here to say Dion Prime is a great coach and not so great coach. I'm not having that conversation. But the man knows a few things about playing defensive back at a high elite level. So if Dion says, I remember that press conference. He sat there and said, Cormani has the opportunity, to be as good as he wants to be, or, he could throw it all away. And he was close. And now he's got a chance. And now I'm not predicting all SEC. I'm not predicting all American. I'm predicting a chance. And he makes what he wants out of that. I think he's got a very solid situation. I think coming back to Florida was a step in the right direction, getting closer to people close to him. I know Ahmad Black, had a few things to say about the situation. Obviously, he was at Lakeland coaching when Cormani was there. You just sometimes it's just the right support system, man, makes all the difference in the world. Like you said, sometimes losing it all, or the chance of losing it all, is all it takes for a kid to realize, man, I don't like this feeling. I'm not important anymore. Nobody, like you said, I could have gone anywhere in the country. I could have gone to Miami for tons of money. I could have gone to Florida for tons of money. I went to Colorado because tons of money, and Dion was there, and thought, and now Memphis wants me, and FAMU. Brother, that's a hard fall from grace. So here's hoping, man. I hope Gator Nation as a whole chooses to support this kid and get behind him, as long as he's doing the things that he's supposed to do. I mean, if he chooses a different road, then it is what it is. We can only support him as long as he supports himself. So, like I said, here's hoping Gator Nation gets behind him, cheers for him, forgets what happened in the past. It is what it is. hopefully he learned a hard lesson, and now he's where he wants to, where he can make something of himself. I don't know where he truly wants to be, but here's where he's at. So let's hope that he makes the best of it. Here's hoping that Billy Napier and Will Harris can make him realize and recognize what he has and what he can have, and we move on from there. And with that, I want to talk with CJ for a second about, obviously we added Cormani today. We've got a chance to add Elijhah Badger on Friday. CJ, with all that being said, if we add those, we finish with those two guys. Obviously, a week ago, we'd never thought in a million years we'd be talking about Cormani McClain tonight. So that's already a major bonus, especially with the talent that we know he possesses. If the kid makes something, if that turns in a rags to riches story, you've already struck gold. But if you end up closing with Badger, how good has Billy Napier done at addressing the needs that we needed to get in this portal cycle?
Well, I kind of messaged you and Wes about it, and I was like, really breaking it down. Like, you went in and he went in. He's added 3 offensive linemen, 3 pretty talented offensive linemen. You added one guy that you think is going to start, another guy who's 6'8" and has played in the SEC, has experience, and then you also added a top recruit from this cycle that you didn't have. You had Westfall, but you didn't have another top offensive lineman recruit. So you add Zandamela, and you've basically covered your 3 bases. You've got a starter, you got a backup, and you've got a project. So you've got 3 guys now to cover 3 different parts as far as that goes. Then you do the same thing with the defensive back room. You add Asa Turner, you add Triquez Bridges, you add DJ Douglas. So you've got 3 bona fide guys that have played a lot of football that can come in and play and start for you. Then you turn around, you add again 2 supremely talented freshmen and a redshirt freshman. So you add Jameer Grimsley and now Cormani McClain, which is very good. Again, you've added 3 guys that can play and a couple of projects, a couple of guys that can play down the road. You add a veteran wide receiver, and if you add Badger, you've added 2 veteran wide receivers, addressing a young wide receiver room. You added a depth piece at tight end. You went and got another quarterback, which we knew was going to be very hard to do. But based on what we have in the room and what you could get that was available, I think they did a really good job of who they got. They got a guy who has played a little bit of football, that has, some D1 experience. You didn't have to go to the FCS ranks to get a quarterback. You got a guy who has played Division I football. So that helps out a ton. You add, again, Pup Howard. So you've added another young cat into the linebacker room, a guy that you kind of got a hybrid there of a guy that can learn, is still young, but he already offers high potential of playing right away because he played a little bit last year. He was kind of developed in South Carolina. He's played some SEC football, which is hard to find when you're talking about the portal, getting guys that have played a lot of SEC football. You have to pay out the rear end for a lot of those guys, or those guys go somewhere else, or they've never played. They were just high recruited prospects like Georgia or Alabama, and they didn't play. They sat on the bench, but there's potential there. This guy is the best of both worlds. Super high potential, also has a little bit of playing time under his belt. Then you add 2 really great players on the defensive line. You add Slackman and you add George Gums. Again, like I said, Billy Napier and the company have done a good job of taking a guy like Gums, who's a project, guy you can work with, a guy that you can possibly use years down the road that you're going to develop some more. And then you've got Slackman, who could come in and play right away. So they've done a really good job of adding experience, but also some talented youth that can still be developed that you can have down the road. You didn't get a whole bunch of guys that are just like 1-year loners. You got a few of those guys, and you needed that. So that's good, but you also didn't just do that. You didn't just get a bunch of mercenaries to come in. You got some guys who could come in and actually be a part of the university and actually, wear the uniform for a few years and really be involved in what we want to do here. Like I said, you added a tight end piece in Caleb Rios from uh, Air Force. So you've covered that bridge. They've done a good job at pretty much saying this is what we needed in the portal. They went and got just about everything you could ask for. If you add Badger, then you're pretty much done. You've done. I think that at that point, Billy Napier has done everything that he can do to set up this team for success for this season. Everything in his power, he's done. You've basically taken a recruiting class that was like 12th at the end, and you've bumped it all the way up to 7th for the 2024 class. So firmly in the top 10. You also, I forgot to mention DeAndre Robinson. You got him to change over from Texas, another guy that replaced defensive lineman that you lost because of flips and everything else at the end of the cycle. So you added 3 guys basically to your 24 class within the portal, which is very impressive. And that moves your class up to 7th. So you got a top 10 recruiting class based on the work you did in the portal. And then on top of that, you also added a bunch of guys that can play like right away, especially in the secondary. You added some safeties that can play like now, which we needed bad at the end of the last season. We all were sitting there. We need some safety help. So we added some guys from, that have played a ton of football, guys that know what they're doing. I'm not saying they're the best players in the world. They're not like, they're not like, I don't know, they're not going to be like all conference safeties or anything like that, but they are guys that can come in and play competent football. So, we'll talk about it more, but I don't see how you could really be upset about anything that has been done within this transfer portal class. I think Billy Napier and his group have done a really, really good job at addressing all the team needs, a much better job than we did last year. If you look at where the prospects are ranked, we didn't have one top 50 transfer portal prospect last year except for Keontae Goodwin. And he didn't, obviously family matters. He didn't get to play. You had to leave, the team. So you lost out on that. So you didn't really get any playmakers last year in the transfer portal. This year, you've added some guys that were ranked really high in the transfer portal. Overall class now, as far as including transfer portal recruiting class, it's 8th in the country, which is really good. So they've added a ton of talent and a bunch of talent that you need. It wasn't just going, ooh, I want this and ooh, I want that guy. It was, what do we need as far as position wise? Who fits our team? Who has the experience? Who can we get to kind of develop over a couple of years? They've covered every base that I think they can. Now it's ultimately going to come down to, of course, winning games in the fall to really be able to judge how good they did. But as right now, just looking at it looking at it on paper and who's been added, they've done a fantastic job. It's actually very impressive. We're still going to have the detractors and the naysayers that don't really enjoy this because we didn't get Jaden Rashada or some big name out of the portal. And of course there were opportunities to do that. I think they did mess up. They didn't get CJ Daniels from Liberty. I think that was a guy that really should have been in the camp. There's a few other things that we saw through the portal that we really were kind of disappointed we didn't get. But for the most part, everybody that we really targeted and really honed in on, it seems like we got them. Pending Badger on Friday. We'll see. Right now, everything looks pretty good. So I think they did a really, really good job. And I think we all can be very happy with what they've done.
You nailed it. I mean, you absolutely nailed it. You should be. And you're seeing a lot more of the pundits out there on social media and all that start to talk more about that Florida might be a team that a lot of people are overlooking next year. And I mean, if you're on social media, you see it. Florida ain't winning more than 4 games next year. Book it. And you're seeing a lot more of the Josh Pates and people like that. I even saw SEC Mike, of all people, who's a huge Vol fan, today say his hot take of the year was that Florida was a top 25 team. Now, I'm not sure I'm ready to buy that Kool-Aid yet. But I don't think this team is as bad as people, especially if you add Badger and you can round out this class. I don't think this team is near as bad as what we even imagined 6 months ago. There's a lot of mix of youth, talent, and veteran leadership on this team. Uh, you can't discount the veteran leadership brought back by having Mertz return, which, I mean, we thought he was, I don't think anyone seriously thought he was leaving anyway. But then like I talked about, you add an Asa Turner on the back end of the defense. I think Asa Turner was as big a portal addition as anybody was, just because you added that veteran leader on the backside in that secondary to get everybody straight. That's going to be a guy that comes in. He's going to learn his playbook. He's going to know where he's supposed to be. He's going to have people lined up where they're supposed to be. You've got Shamar doing it at the middle, so every level you've got Cam Jackson, and Sapp and those guys on the defensive line that are all, Boone, all those guys have been here. So you have, and Wingo's going to be playing. As long as Wingo's healthy, he's going to see snaps. So that's another veteran. I mean, that defense now has got veterans at all three levels. And I think that defense is going to be a lot better. I think having Rodgers here, having that overseer of the defense, I think Will Harris is a lot more bought in than Raymond was. And that's here nor there. Or Raymond, maybe he's checked out. I mean, LSU's going to find out real quick. But I just don't think you can discount all the pieces that were brought in and plugged at positions that were identified as needs. You brought up, obviously, I just said Ace Turner, and you brought up DJ Douglas. I mean, you saw that we were very young in the safety room. But now you've got a good mix of Turner, Douglas, Asa Turner, excuse me, I'm stepping over myself, Castell and Thornton on top of Asa Turner and DJ Douglas. I mean, these are all guys you can rotate in and they can play. And that's something we haven't had in 2 years is a good rotation to spell some of these guys so that by the end of the third quarter, fourth quarter, they're dead. And now you have that. You have solid rotations pretty much at every position, especially if you add Badger. Then that receiver rotation is solid. Offensive line, I still think you're a little more thin on the offensive line as far as experience than you would like to be, but there's a lot more than there was. So I'm with you, man. I think they nailed it. And if you hit on Badger on Friday, you've just completely iced the cake. You have really gone out and said, you know what, we needed to have X amount of players at every position to really round out the rotation, to have a few starters, and you've just nailed it. And then all the excuses are off the table, and that's what we keep saying. You've taken the excuses off the table. Now it comes down to the one other question people have about Billy Napier, and is that, can he win games as a coach at the SEC level? And we've seen we've been in the fight with pretty much every game. Now you've got enough talent and enough rotation, enough all of that to overcome that. All the excuses are gone. Win the football games, Billy Napier. Show that you belong. Buy one more year to build this thing up, and then we go from there. I'm really encouraged by what they've shown here this week, especially pulling a rabbit out of the hat like Cormani. To me, that was just unbelievable to work in silence and pull that off. And like we said, if it pays off, you're striking absolute gold on that. So I'm excited, man. I haven't been excited about a whole lot in the last few months, but you know, at any given time like that, a couple of little, puzzle pieces get put into place, and here we are. So I'm sorry. I kind of hate the hype man wasn't here tonight. We might have been here for another half hour or so. The hype man would have been blowing the roof off, but we'll let him we'll let him chime in next week. But obviously, next week we'll have a full idea because Badger will either be on board or not be on board, and we'll kind of give our grades about things, about how we feel like the offseason went. But until then, man, that's going to be it, man. I really hope everybody is excited about these moves. I hope everyone is got a renewed interest about where this season could go. Now we got to get to the fall, man, and just stay healthy. That's the next level of that. Obviously, summer recruiting being a whole different thing, but it all doesn't matter if the season goes sour. So, CJ, you got anything to add, man, before we leave?
No. If you're wondering about baseball, you got to win the series this weekend against. You got to win the series this weekend against Georgia. If we don't do that, then we're done. That's pretty much it. No matter how hard our schedule was, what our RPI is, if you don't at least have a 500 record going into the tournament, they don't let you in. So good luck to that. Congratulations to the softball girls, the girls softball team winning the SEC tournament, the SEC champions. Congratulations to those girls, number 4 seed in the country. So root on those girls. They've had a major turnaround this season and really, really become one of the better teams in the country. So I'm, rooting heavily for the softball girls to get us another championship home. But like I said, thank you guys so much for supporting us as creators. Check out the Facebook. Keep going with us on YouTube. Leave the comments. Subscribe. Ask us some questions if you got some questions. Tell us what you guys think about Cormani. What's your opinion on it? How do you feel about it? If you have some reservations, I totally understand that. Let us know in the comments. Lets us, have a good gauge on what the real fan base is feeling. And of course, check out our friends at Alma Mater. They've we talk about it every week. They've got a lot of the NIL programs going on over there with the players supporting them. So, use our link. Go check them out. Buy some Gator gear for your dad. Father's Day is coming up right around the corner. Go ahead and get it on back order. That way you don't have to worry about it getting here. Go ahead and just take the weight off your shoulders. Get eased in.
Take care of Dad now. Don't wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. Your dad deserves nice Gators gear. So go ahead and get out there and use them. Again, top of the show, Hirsch mentioned our friends at Florida Victorious. Use our code over there if you can. I'm sorry. Last week I said Jimmy Stewart, and I don't know why I said. I don't know why I said Jimmy Stewart was doing it. I meant Jerry Lewis. So if anybody was confused,
we were riding the struggle bus last week.
It was a rough one, but no, we're not a telethon here. You guys, I understand things are hard. I totally get that. So if you guys can't donate, that's cool too. But if you feel inclined, help out our team. Choose where you want your donation to go. Get involved with some of the great programs that the Florida Victorious is doing. Football season coming up right around the corner. There's going to be all kinds of special events and tailgates and meet and greets and all that kind of good stuff to really give back to the members of Florida Victorious. So if you guys can give to them, go ahead and do that and use our code. Get a little discount to start off there with and get eased in there. But no, thank you guys so much for supporting us. Thank you for supporting the channel. We see it grow. We seem to get bigger and bigger every football season. So maybe, this year we get to football season, another wave comes around. You guys put us over that 4,000 subscriber mark. We really would appreciate that. We appreciate you guys that have been here since the beginning, rocking with us. Means a lot to us. So thank you so much for hanging with us and getting all your Gator information from us. There's a whole lot of other places to get it from. So you guys using us, we really, really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Everything he just said, man. We're sitting right at around 3,600 subscribers, man. Next goal, obviously 4,000. We'd love to reach it, obviously, before fall practice rolls around. But I mean, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of y'all out there listening to the show, not subscribed. And hey, man, it's simple, it's easy, it's free, it costs you nothing. Just reach up, hit that, and click that button real quick, man. And it helps us a lot more than you possibly know, man. It's the best gift you could ever give to us. We appreciate you all for your support, as always, guys. And until next week, man, go Gators.
Go Gators.